Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paola, and on today's episode of Twisted, we're going to be exploring Adnan Syed and the murder of Hae Min Lee. Before we start, you might be wondering, what the heck is Twisted? So, Twisted is the marriage of two of my passions, both makeup and all things true crime, conspiracy. We're going to be going there. So, if you do have recommendations on stories you would like for me to cover, whether it's a conspiracy theory, an unsolved mystery, whatever it is, leave it down in the comments below and I'd be more than happy to do one for you. Anyways, let's get started. I want to start off by paying my respects to the victim in this case, Hae Min Lee. No matter what you believe about Adnan Syed, whether he's guilty or not, at the end of the day, Hae still lost her life. So let's talk about her. Hae Min Lee was born October 15th, 1980 in South Korea and emigrated to the United States in 1992. She would later go to Woodlawn High School in the Baltimore, Maryland area, where she was in the magnet program. She played field hockey, lacrosse, and managed the boys wrestling team. This was until January 13th, 1999. And that's where this story begins. At that time, Adnan Syed was a Muslim American kid, Hae's classmate, and also her ex-boyfriend. Alright, so on Wednesday, January 13th, 1999, Hae Min Lee was reported missing by her family after failing to pick up her younger cousin from daycare at around 3:30 p.m. The thing is, this was a school day, and Hae was in school that day, and as a matter of fact, several people reported her seeing her leave all the way at the end of the day. Sadly though, her body would be found 4 weeks later on February 9th, partially buried at Leakin Park. At first, the police's attention was on the maintenance worker Alonzo Sellers, which discovered the body. So Alonzo Sellers claims to have been drinking a beer while driving when suddenly he realized he had to pee. So he pulled over on the side of the road and walked into the woods about 127 feet into the woods, where he looked down and saw what he believed to be hair and a part of a foot. The police were like, that's interesting. That is, until 4 days later, when on February 12th, an anonymous tip came in through like the Crime Stoppers line, where it says, all the call said was, look into the ex. The ex, of course, was Adnan Syed. So 17-year-old Adnan Syed was arrested on February 28th and charged with first-degree murder. So this is when things start getting a little complicated. So before we keep going, I think that there are a couple of things that I should make mention to, especially given the time in which this happened. This didn't happen yesterday. This happened in 1999. So in 1999, before I get to that, there was a $3,075 reward for any tips that came in through Crime Stoppers that would lead to an arrest in the case, or a conviction in the case, I guess is what it's called. I'm not sure. Also, in 1999, while cell phones did exist, they were not nearly as possible as they are now. Like now, you'd be hard pressed to find someone that didn't have a cell phone. They were more of a novelty then. But were nowhere near as popular as pagers. No one was glued to their phone, right? So you could take your phone, you would let people borrow it, you would keep it wherever. It wasn't on you all the time. Adnan and Hae were not allowed to date, as their families didn't allow them to date. So it was, they did it anyway. They were teenagers, they did it anyway, but they weren't allowed to do this, It was very much almost secretive, and more so on Adnan's part, because his family was very religious and very into their religion, and he just was not allowed to date. And in the early morning of the day following, the 4:30 in the morning or something like that, the day after she disappeared, an ice storm hit the area. So there was no school for those next 2 days. Like, no one was in school talking about it or anything. Everyone, schools closed down because there was an ice storm. It was that bad that they had to shut down. And on the day that she disappeared, Hae had told her best friend that her plans were to go pick up her cousin from daycare, because, you know, that's just, it was part of her responsibilities, but then to go see her boyfriend, Don. We'll get to Don. All right, so keep all of this in mind, but let's get back to the story. Adnan was arrested really quickly after this tip came in, mostly because of testimony from his friend, Jay Wilds. Oh, Jay Wilds. More on him in a bit. So whenever women go missing or are murdered or anything like that, usually their partner is the first suspect. So why wasn't Don Kleindienst? I don't know if it's Kleindienst or Kleindienst. So sorry for butchering that name. But why wasn't he more of, I guess, a topic of discussion or more of a suspect? Well, he was for a very, very short time. And it turned out that he had an alibi. Sort of an alibi. So, Hay met Dawn through work, right? They both worked at LensCrafters. Dawn's alibi was that he actually was at work during the time she went missing, which was corroborated by a timesheet that was submitted very last minute to the trial. And I mean, that's great. He still had an alibi. He was still at work, right? But get this. The manager that signed off on said timesheets was Dawn's mom. So Dawn was ruled out by police and the focus shifted to Adnan. Why, you may ask? Enter Jay Wilds. So after the anonymous phone call, they started looking into Adnan and his phone records, and they saw calls placed on that day, on the day of her disappearance, to both Jay Wilds and their other friend, Jennifer. So Jay met with the police the morning of, the morning that Adnan was arrested. Jay claims that him and Adnan went to the mall. They kind of cut school, and on their last period, instead of going to class, they went to the mall and were buying a birthday present for Jay's girlfriend because it was her birthday. And the whole time that they were at the mall, he claims that Adnan was being weird, just acting weird, and saying things like he wanted to kill that bitch. But he just kind of took it as he's just mad and just kind of talking, whatever. Then Adnan needed to go back to the school. He went back to the school and let Jay borrow both his car and left him his cell phone. He said, hey, I'll call you when I'm ready for you to pick me up. Remember what I said about cell phones? It wasn't a big deal for him to kind of just leave him with a cell phone. There were pay phones everywhere. So it wasn't a big deal at the time at all. I mean, but also you're not going to leave your cell phone to a stranger. It would definitely be to like a friend or family member or whatever. So then Jay claims that Adnan called him from a cell phone outside of a nearby Best Buy, not a cell phone, sorry, a payphone outside of the nearby Best Buy, which, side note, no one remembers this payphone ever being there. There are no records that that payphone ever existed. But this is what Jay is telling the police, right? And anyways, when he calls him, Adnan supposedly says, the bitch is dead, come meet me at Best Buy. And Jay goes to Best Buy. Whatever. When he gets there, he said it was about like 3:55, and Adnan showed him Hay's body in the back seat of her car. Actually, not the back seat, in the trunk of her own car, in the Best Buy parking lot. Then Jay says that he helped Adnan bury the body at Lincoln Park around 7 p.m. Apparently, Jay changes his story 3 times when being asked about when he first saw the body before landing at Best Buy. The police decided to go with it anyway. A lot of people question the authenticity of Jay's testimony, right? I mean, but a lot of people are questioning it due not just to him changing it, but in the police, like in the not the video, the recording of the interview, the police interview, you can hear like what sounds like tapping, like somebody tapping on the table, or I don't know. I don't want to speculate what they were tapping on, but you can definitely hear tapping. You can go to either the undisclosed site or serial site, like the podcast sites, and those are the only places that I've been able to listen to the recording of this, but you can definitely hear tapping, right? So a lot of people question the credibility of it, of the testimony, based off of those things. Trial time. The best way that I can describe this trial is a comedy of errors. From Adnan's attorney to what was allowed to be submitted as evidence, like even down to what wasn't discussed in the trial, like it was just a whole mess, y'all. It was a mess. Let me pop on some lashes and clean up my eye a little bit, and I'll be right back. Actually, I'm just gonna put a little blue under it. All right, let me clean it up, and I'll be right back to tell you guys why the trial was such a mess. So now, I don't like to speak on the deceased, but let's talk about Adnan's original attorney, Miss Cristina Gutierrez. So here are just a few of the ways that it is believed she kind of impeded or just plain out was not helpful towards the entire case. Turns out Adnan actually had an alibi, but the person, the witness that actually could corroborate his alibi, was never contacted by his original attorney, like at all. On the cover of the AT&T phone records, when they were provided, they came with a disclaimer stating that incoming calls could not be used to reliably place someone at a certain location. The only thing that was more of a reliable way to do that was outbound calls. And the prosecution was using incoming calls to place Adnan near Leakin Park, at least near the park itself, right? Not just that, but apparently Hayes' boyfriend, Don, worked at a different LensCrafter location the entire week, every other day that week, than the one where the timesheet was found. And when the original timesheet, he was like off on that day, until magically he showed up on the timesheet for that other location where his mom was the manager. And she let all of this kind of just happen. But what kind of really set everything off was that at one point the jurors, or the jury, was able to hear the judge and this attorney arguing, and the judge straight up called her a liar. So because of that, and because they were arguing and the jury heard the judge call her a liar, it was declared a mistrial. So they had to kind of start from scratch, right? Enter Adnan's second attorney, Charles Dorsey. So this new attorney's, I guess, plan was that he was going to say, or that he did say, that if Adnan had done it, it was a horrible mistake and a crime of passion. Even though Adnan maintained his innocence, he was like, no, I didn't do this. He even spoke up to the judge in the trial, during the trial, and said, listen, I know this guy's saying it's a crime of passion, whatever, but I did not do it. He kept maintaining his innocence. And as you can imagine, though, the jury's hearing all this, and they're like, listen, dude, your attorney is saying basically you did it as a crime of passion. So that did not work in Adnan's favor at all. So on February 25th, 2000, Adnan Syed, almost a year to the date after he was arrested, was found guilty. Forgive me for looking down at my notes. This part has like a lot of dates in it, right? But after a few appeals, on November 6, 2015, a judge finally decided to reopen the case, right? Basically because of ineffectiveness of counsel, because of, you know, all the stuff that had happened with his previous attorneys. They brought in Adnan's alibi, and on June 30th, 2016, the judge vacated the conviction. So basically it was like the conviction never happened, but because Adnan was denied bail because, you know, he was a suspected murderer, he was denied bail. Then the following March, the new trial was denied because the judges believed that even with this new evidence, the alibi, the all of the information that they had about the cell phone towers not being, they felt that Jay's testimony and, you know, whatever else that they were really considering, like, you know, other people's alibis and everything, it was enough that the jury would have found him guilty anyway. So they denied him the new trial. That's kind of where we're at right now. There are new updates that happened, but as you can tell, he was convicted back in 2000. That was 20 years ago. And he didn't even, like, his appeal didn't even go through, and he had filed a few of them until 2015. That's when they decided to reopen the case. That was 15 years later. And even then, it took a whole nother year. It was supposed to take a few months, like 3 to 5 months, and it took a whole nother year, and yeah, like almost an entire other year for them to even start the proceedings, and then for them to finally, then almost a year after that, for them to finally say, hey, we're not doing a new trial. Here are some things that we should keep in mind. According to the autopsy, lividity, which is the way that your blood pools in your body after you, like right after you pass away, because, you know, it's not pumping anymore, so it kind of just pools under your skin, and that's what gives sometimes like dead bodies the, like, that bluish purple look. It's just the blood pooling under the skin. Anyways, so according to her autopsy, Hayes' body would have had to been placed face down and flat, like not bent or anything, or like scrunched up in a trunk, for 8 to 12 hours before being buried, right? Because even the way that they found the body, it didn't make sense that it was only a few hours later that she was buried, and the lividity would have looked different. It just would have been different, period. Also, Jay Wilde took the police exactly to where Hayes' car was, like, kind of dumped. It was in this, like, residential, I want to say residential neighborhood, but not any of their neighborhoods. But it was just kind of parked off of the street there on this little, like, hill. And he took police exactly to where to find the car. Shortly after the reward money was claimed, Jay Wilde purchased a motorcycle from one of his teachers, I believe, for $3,000. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but the reward was $3,075. So in 2019, HBO was actually doing a documentary about this whole case, and they actually were able to get a hold of Jay Wilde, and he told them that this whole Best Buy version of the story actually came from the police. So basically what he was saying is that he was being coerced by the police to say that this is what happened, or if not coerced, at the very least, like, guided in that direction to say that this is what happened and this is the version of events that happened, and that he was going along with it because something I did forget to mention earlier is Jay Wilde was a little bit of a drug dealer. He was selling weed, and at that time he was afraid that he was going to be arrested and charged, and he just was afraid that they were going to use his drug dealing against him, right? So this was kind of a way for him to collaborate. No, it was a way for him to help the police, and in turn him get helped by not going to jail. So that's what he said happened, and I mean, that's Adnan still to this day is staying strong, saying he did not do this. I personally have very strong opinions about this case, but I don't want to sway anybody any kind of way. So I actually want to hear what you guys think. Sound off in the comments below. And yeah, I hope you join me next time for the next Twisted episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you watched up to this point. Bye guys. This came out cute though. Look at the makeup. All right.